Good. Okay.
All right.
Just about there. And there we go.
And we are live on Facebook as well.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Smart with Your Money Live. I am Chase Peckham. I am the Director of Community Outreach at the San Diego Financial Literacy Center, the education arm of DebtWave Credit Counseling. And as we are every other week with Smart with Our Money Live, we are joined by Felipe Arevalo. He is the coordinator for community outreach at the San Diego Financial Literacy Center. And this week, we're going to talk about how to establish SMART goals. And Phil, the last swim live we had, we did cover this a little bit, but we're going to go into great depth today.
Yeah, we started covering it a couple weeks ago, and hopefully everyone was able to join us. And if you missed it, you can go back, check it out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you watch your videos. But today we're going to go more in depth on how to turn your money goals into SMART goals. And you may have heard of them in other places in education. SMART goals are very popular. But today we're gonna concentrate on the money side of things. And if you can create SMART goals for other things, why not create them for personal finances as well?
It's funny, we covered this on the podcast that's going to be coming out this Friday, talking about how many times we've probably heard about SMART goals through school at different portions or different times in our lives, whether it be junior high, middle school, high school, and even in college. Depending on the course, somebody has talked about SMART goals, and that is something that we talk about in our budgeting workshops quite a bit because people poo-poo them, but they work.
Right. There's a reason they've been around for so long. We didn't invent this.
We did not invent these, right? Although we do put our own little twist on it.
Put our twists on it. You might see something a little bit different during the presentation, but basically SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. That is the SMART goal acronym. So, but it fits in very nicely. It's a nice little acronym.
Yeah, because one of the biggest difficulties that people have with starting out something new, especially when it's coming up as a budget or it's paying off debt, it's coming up with what is it that they want to do instead of these grandiose, giant, I'm going to pay off all my debt in a year. Can you really do that? And if you find early on that you're not able to accomplish that, you quit pretty quick.
For sure. There's a lot of components that allow you to make these goals work. And each slide from here on is going to touch on each individual letter, separately, and we'll kind of run through it and explain it, and we'll give some examples for you as well.
I love this, Phil. You are the king of the SMART goal.
I do like SMART goals. I blame my brother. When he was in college, he made me proofread some long 20-page paper on goal setting theory because he would obviously find no one else to proofread it. So he got stuck with me. So I blame my brother for this one. But the first one is specific. Make your goal specific. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? It's difficult to concentrate your efforts on something when you say, I want to do better with money. What does that entail?
What is that? That's pretty broad.
Right. That can mean anything. Your definition of being good with money is probably different than mine, is different than Chase's, is different than everyone else's. So make your goal specific. What is it that you're trying to accomplish?
So let's say today, specifically for our swim live, that we're going to talk about saving money, because that's really one of the biggest things that we hear from people when it comes to New Year's resolutions, even on just a regular basis, that saving money tends to be the most difficult thing.
Correct. So let's say for my example I have here, let's say you want to save money, and then how do we make that specific? Well, maybe you want to save, is it a long-term goal? Is it a short-term goal? and then you go from there. For a long-term goal, maybe you want to save $20,000 in 10 years. Now, $20,000 is an intimidating amount of money to say, I put that in a savings account. But then you break down the goals, and this will touch on with other letters coming up here, but maybe you make your initial short-term goal that you want to save $2,000 this year. And what you've done there is your goal is specific. You have a deadline by the end of the year, and you have a specific amount of money. I want to save X amount of dollars. So whatever your goal is, I want to pay off $10,000 worth of credit card debt in 5 years. I want to, pay off the last $2,000 on my credit cards, by the end of the year. Make them specific. And with money, there's that added, with money goals, there's an added component. There's usually a price tag on your goal. So it allows for that portion of it to be very specific. You need X amount of dollars to accomplish X, Y, Z.
Right.
Yeah. So, which kind of brings us to the next one, is to make sure that your goals are measurable. And they kind of go hand in hand, in that in money goals, the easiest way to measure whether or not you've accomplished something is, do you have enough money to make the purchase? Do you have enough money saved up? Do you have that dollar amount that you require for whatever it is your financial goal happens to be?
Yeah, you can't say I want to save $10,000 if there's not $10,000 to save.
Right. And it's something, I mention it all the time when we do presentations at high schools and at colleges, that, I ask the students, before I start, do you have personal finance goals? Do you have money goals? And a lot of them, you get some hands, but then a lot of them don't raise their hands. So I like to follow up with, do you have something you want to buy? And everyone has something they want to buy, whether it's today, tomorrow, the next day, or in the long term. And then I remind them that, so you do have some personal finance, some money goals. You just have never taken the time to sit there and put it together. Because everything you're going to buy requires you to have a measurable amount of money.
Exactly.
Which kind of brings us to the next one. Is the goal achievable? Now, your personal finance goals, in theory, to better your personal finances, should be challenging. You don't want to make them too easy. It's good to give yourself a layup here and there, of course, but is it something that you can achieve? Is it something that's within your means?
Exactly. And we go back to talking about not biting off more than you can chew, right? And thinking about so baby steps. And if you think about like walking, for instance, right? Or let's put it into, I want to lose 30 pounds in 2 months. That might be not really achievable, right? And probably not safe. But you mentioned it last week that if you just start taking a walk every day, and maybe it's a day, and then the next couple of weeks you're taking 20-minute walks, and soon enough in the next year or two, maybe you're doing a 5K and then a 10K and so on and so forth. And it's the same kind of thing with money, is saying, I want to save, but what is achievable? So let's say if you wanted to save $2,000 in a year, right? You just want to put that away because you've never done that. What is it going to take to do that? So if you look at it, I think most people are it's a month.
Your monthly
let's
budget.
Just think monthly.
Yeah, you think monthly, that's $166. I know people who pay that much for cable, 500 channels, so they could watch the same 4 channels over and over and over. So if you do it on a monthly basis, that becomes much more achievable. You break it down weekly, that's $42 a week.
Right.
Yeah. So
you broke up a little bit there.
I did. I apologize.
That's okay.
Live 2020, now it's 2021 edition. I did get a little notice, like weak internet connection, but I think I'm back.
You are back, and you're good.
Yeah. So I don't know which part I broke up on.
You didn't go away completely. We did hear you. It just was a little, spotty.
Oh, okay. So you break down those bigger goals to see if it's something that's achievable. See if it's something that you can, with your current financial situation, maybe you have to make adjustments, but it's something that can be done, which kind of ties into this one, which is realistic.
This is the one part of the SMART goal that I never really cared for that much because it's so close to achievable.
Correct. Right. Is it something that's realistic? Well, if you can achieve it, then
it's realistic.
It's realistic. And if you can't achieve it, then it's not realistic. So I started looking around, and again, I didn't invent this next part, as I didn't invent most of this, any of this really, except for finding the right gifts. But maybe we call our relevant. Make your personal finance goals relevant to you, because if they're not relevant to you, what incentive do you have to put in the effort to accomplish them?
Right. And so many times people will, for especially in money situations, are stressed out and they are struggling to make ends meet. So they want to pay off everything so fast. And the problem is you don't get into debt super fast and you're not going to get out of it super fast. That's why creating these SMART goals is important. And now the relevancy part is figuring out what little part do we want to kick away at first? And can we do multiple parts of that? And so that relevancy really has to do too with, if you're a couple, sitting down and making sure you guys are on the same page, wanting to achieve the same things.
Absolutely. Yeah, if one of the two decides, I want to pay off my credit card debt in the next year or two, let's say year, and the other one of the other half of that money equation is thinking, I really just want to have a good time and try and put 2020 behind us and go on vacations, and they have to match. And how much effort is the individual who doesn't realize or hasn't bought into the idea of paying off that debt? How much effort are they going to make to be conscious with their spending, to cut back here and there? If someone gave you one of their goals, are you going to put any effort into accomplishing it? The answer is no. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be something you want to accomplish. Otherwise, why would you put in any of the other parts of the effort? So I kind of like changing this changing it to relevant from realistic, because to me, if it's achievable, then it's realistic. And if it's not achievable, it's not realistic. So that R is covered. Let's go with relevant for now, and make sure that your goals are something that you want to accomplish. They're your financial goals, not mine, not anyone else's. So they have to become yours. And people ask all the time, how do I motivate myself? How do I motivate my significant other, my kids, my parents, whoever they're trying to help with money, to be better with their money? And I always default back to, what are their financial goals? And I think that the relevancy here plays a big role, because use that to motivate themselves. It's hard to motivate someone else, but if you can find out what it is that they want to accomplish with money, and that's the motivation that they're looking for, because now it's important to them.
Right. And it's watching these SMART goals become an actual plan and putting it into practice, because that's what works out. A goal is a goal, which is great. But if it's not put into practice, then really it's just a well thought out wish, right? It's got to be put into practice, and following these steps is going to help you do that. And that's why we recommend it's trying, if you want to start small and then make it larger as you go, because now you're more used to the practice of creating these goals.
Right. It's become a habit too.
Right.
Yeah. So then we go on to the last one, T, and it is timely.
This is probably the most important, I think.
Create urgency for yourself. Give yourself a timeline. Give yourself a deadline. When do you want to accomplish this by? If you say, I want to pay off my credit card debt, that's a good goal. You have that debt, you want to pay it off. Good job. You know how much debt you have. Good job. When do you want to accomplish this by? So that you can monitor your progress along the way. If you have $5,000 worth of credit card debt and you say at the end of the month, well, I paid down my debt by $10. Technically, you're moving towards your goal, but how long is it going to take to accomplish that goal? Give yourself a deadline. to create that urgency to, track your progress.
And so many of us are going to say, but I'm terrible at math. I don't know how to figure out that equation. But the thing is there are so many different places online that you can go to get these payoff calculators that will help you see right in front of you how much, and you put in everything from your interest rate to how much you're going to pay back every month. And it'll show you exactly how much you're going to need to pay to accomplish the goal that you have set ahead of you. So if it's, I want to pay off all that debt in 5 years, you're going to know that this is what I'm going to have to pay every single month. And then of course not add to it. And if on the other side, if you're trying to save, it's the same kind of thing. And that's actually an easier equation, right? It's
right.
I save this much per pay period. So if you're biweekly, that's 26 pay periods in a year. I think it's two times a year that you get paid 3 times in a month. A lot of people think that's an extra payment. It's not. It averages the same, just the month gets a little quirky.
Right.
But you know that if you're going to save $77 every paid period, that'll add up to $2,000 or so by the time that you're finished.
Yeah, it's definitely something you can just kind of look at it and do the math and say, okay, break it down depending on your pay schedule. Right. Military families know the 1st and 15th. They're not getting paid. They're getting paid twice every month.
Teachers are going to know once a month.
Teachers get paid once a month. Right. And then you might have to watch out for summer, depending on your school district, where you might only get 11 paychecks or 2 half paychecks in the summer, however it is that it's worked out in your school district. Working in education, that was an adjustment. That monthly payment in my college years, that was how I got paid, once a month. And that was when I was not good with my money. So it made it very difficult there to stretch it out for a whole month. But make your goals timely, and then don't give up. They're your financial goals. You set them for yourself because it was something important to you. It was something you wanted to accomplish. So, don't give up. Are you going to encounter some obstacles along the way? Absolutely. That's just something that's just life. But if you stumble, you get back up and you keep moving forward. You find out what you're going to do to change it and to keep making progress towards your goals.
And again, once you start these goals and creating them, as you mentioned before, they're going to be habits eventually. And it's something that you're going to be able to just keep going and then building upon it. That $77 may become $100 because now you're going, man, that was easy. And we got a lot of money left over. Let's put this much more to it. Because once you've figured out the pattern for yourself and what works best, creating those goals and putting them into practice, it's going to be so much easier to keep up than trying to do it all at once. And because we as human beings tend to be instant gratification, especially in this world of the 24-hour news cycle. We have information at
the internet is so fast, except for mine, apparently.
It really is. I mean, I just watching my kids who plays a video game and watches a video at the same time because he can. Last night, my kid, my son was like, oh, how come we have to wait for next week to watch this program? Because he's so used to watching, binge watching a season in a row. My wife and I just laughed and said, man, when we were speaking of Friends, you had to wait to the next week. You had to have patience to find out what happened to Phoebe and Joey by the next week, right? So the same thing goes with creating these plans. Especially that's why I said important. Keep it up. It becomes habit. And next thing you know, you don't even realize that you're making the progress you're making, and you can add to it so easily.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you get out there, make your goals. You might already have your goals. Maybe take the time to adjust them and turn them into SMART goals and see where that goes. See if that helps. See if if you don't have goals or you think you don't have goals, try and think of what you're trying to accomplish with money, because chances are you do have some goals. You just haven't thought of them as financial goals in the past, and doing so can be big. And if you missed last 2 weeks ago's presentation, I do recommend you go back and kind of watch it. Kind of goes hand in hand with this week. More than happy to take any questions, whether it's on here or on Facebook, and those will be relayed to us. Feel free to.
And if you feel comfortable and you'd like to, speak or talk, you're able to do that as well. But But if you want, just put those questions in the chat and we will answer them, even if it's not directly what we were talking about today. If you have a finance question, personal finance question that's even off this topic a little bit, we will do our best to answer it for you in the time allotted. Phil, I have a question for you. Has there been any
Yeah.
goals that you've put into practice lately that you can share with us that have worked for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to lose weight, which in the past has been challenging. I've been successful and then otherwise, but this time I'm starting off a little bit slower. It's just more a matter of, not doing necessarily a New Year's resolution for that, but work out twice a week, 3 times a week is what I figured I can start off with, and then after a while it becomes easier and easier as you go. On the personal finance things, this year I am not doing groceries more than once a week. It's just, I've realized through 2020 and COVID that you can in fact only go to the grocery store once a week. And I'm like 1.5 weeks between grocery trips at the moment. You just plan it better. It eliminates waste. It keeps me from overspending on those yummy items that I shouldn't be eating anyways, frozen foods, chips, that kind of thing, cookies. And so make a list, go to the grocery store once, and then not go back. Instead of saying, oh, I went to Sprouts on Monday, I'm going to Costco tomorrow. That was unnecessary. And I've putting that into play. 2021 at most once a week.
So that really gives you a good idea on what you want to spend or what you're going to spend weekly and then monthly on your groceries, which helps your budget, right? I would imagine then by you trying to lose weight, going to that's helping as far as what you're buying. Because if you go if you go a couple times a week, 3 times a week, because you don't know what you want to eat, you're really good at the beginning of the week, right? And you buy all the vegetables and then you eat them maybe once or twice. And then by the end of the week, you're like, well, those don't really sound good anymore. So you go to the store some more and then those vegetables go bad. Right. So if you only go the once a week, you're going to eat them, right? And or figure out ways to implement them into your meals. You're saving a bunch of money, especially considering the amount of times that you're going.
Yeah, for sure. And then something that was mentioned in the chat, so there, once you set your goals, and you start on this path, and Chase, you mentioned where, maybe you look at it and you're like, I could put in a little bit more extra money. Seeing that progress sometimes will motivate individuals to say, you know what, I'm making progress now. Maybe I'll go get this side hustle. Maybe whatever it is. Maybe maybe I go and I get an extra part-time job on the weekends. I do Uber or Lyft.
My wife did that, and she's very successful PR director. And she went to Rodan and Fields because she liked their product, and now has been selling, doing that for a couple of years. And that's good side money that she uses for things that she normally wouldn't have bought. And then and has nothing to do with me.
You take that increased money, and then because you're already able to allocate funds, instead of incorporating that, if let's say your goal is to pay off debt, instead of incorporating that into, now I have more spending money, maybe for the time being, while that debt is there, you incorporate it into, I can make this much more progress, and accomplish your goals even faster. I do live near a fire station, so I apologize for the fire sirens. I try to mute myself fast enough.
Your audio is so good. I thought that they were outside my house, just so you know.
Any other questions?
I will tell you that there was one thing my wife tried to do this month, and we created goals to do it, even though it didn't work out real well, was she was going to have a no spend January. And you want to talk about spitting off more than you can chew. It just wasn't reality. And I kept looking at her and saying, why do you want to do this no spend January? I mean, obviously there's something that's bothering her. And through this COVID, she was buying more athleisure wear right? And we talked about this on the podcast a little bit. But instead of doing that, especially because my birthday's right in the middle of the month and she was going to do a no spend January, I'm like, come on.
I feel like it's a little intentional.
I think so. I think she's kind of giving me a hint. But it ended up just being, why don't you have it be a no spend athleisure wear January? Sorry, Viore. But that sounded a lot less daunting than no spend January on anything, because that's just not reality. That was more than she could chew. So creating that game plan of saying, we have everything we need, and we're going to set aside to just not do buying something online, any kind of clothes online. That was way more doable than just not spending any money on random things in January.
Absolutely. It makes it so that you can accomplish the goal. It makes it so that you can, and then once you accomplish that goal, it encourages you to say, you know what, I did that. I can do the next one. And it just kind of can evolve into, all of a sudden you're setting up all kinds of goals and then crushing those goals and making sure that you knock them out the park and just start rolling through your goals, whether they're short-term ones or long-term ones.
Figuring out those goals, getting together with your family is so important. And as our Lim says, the goals are only as good as the actionable plan that you put into place. And that's the most important. And Felipe's going in and out. So I think that
I wasn't sure
Philip,
if it was me or if it was you this.
It might have been. Oh no, well, I don't think so. But just to let you know, we will be back.
One or both of us have a net collision.
Yeah, it could be both of us. But we are coming up a week from Wednesday, 2 weeks from today. We will be back, and we're going to be discussing Valentine's Day and creating Valentine's Day on a budget. So that's February 3rd, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific. We'll be back live, and nice little title you put on there. Roses are red, violets are blue. What does it say?
Valentine's on a budget is sweet too.
There you go. It was covered by my chat. I apologize. But that's about it. If there aren't any other questions, we will say thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We love doing these things, and the more interaction we have with you all, the better.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by.
And thanks to all those that were watching on Facebook.
Yes, thank you.